What if I told you the key to surviving a specific part of a nuclear event wasn't some huge bunker, but a single tiny pill? I know, it sounds like something straight out of the movie, but it's very real. So today we're going to unpack the science behind potassium iodide. You'll probably see it called KI, and its incredibly specific and life-saving job as a shield for your thyroid.
Okay, so right off the bat, let's forget everything you've probably seen in the movies. This is not some magic pill that makes you immune to all radiation, not even close. We're zeroing in on one very specific, totally invisible threat that can be released in a nuclear event, radioactive iodine. And the crazy thing is, it targets this tiny little gland in your neck, all because of an element your body absolutely has to have to survive.
So that leads to the big question, right? In a worst-case scenario, you've got dangerous radiation out in the environment. Why on earth is this one small, butterfly-shaped gland in your neck suddenly a bullseye for this one very specific kind of danger?
Well, the answer is actually a pretty fascinating quirk of our own biology. You see, your thyroid is basically an iodine magnet. Its whole job is to pull iodine out of your bloodstream to make these super important hormones that control your metabolism. It's a brilliant system, really. It keeps us healthy day in and day out until the iodine it's grabbing is radioactive. And that's when its greatest strength suddenly becomes its most dangerous weakness.
So if the problem is your thyroid sucking up the wrong kind of iodine, then what's the solution? Well, it's actually surprisingly simple. You basically beat the bad iodine to the punch with a whole lot of the good kind. And that's where the hero of our story comes in, potassium iodide. And let's be super clear about what this is. This isn't some daily vitamin. The official definition calls KI an antidote. Its one job, and I mean its only job, is to shield your thyroid from absorbing radioactive iodine. That's it. And by doing that, it dramatically cuts the risk of getting thyroid cancer later on from that one specific exposure. Okay, but how can a simple little salt tablet pull off such a critical job? The way it works is, well, it's both beautiful in its simplicity and incredibly effective. Let's break down the science of how it literally floods your system to create this protective shield. The best way to think about this is with an analogy. Picture your thyroid as a dry sponge, just sitting there ready to soak up any iodine that comes its way. Now, when you take potassium iodide, it's like you're dumping a giant bucket of clean, safe iodine, think of it as clean water, all over that sponge. What happens? It gets totally full, right? Completely saturated. So now, when the radioactive iodine, the dirty water, comes along, there's literally no room for it. The sponge is full. It can't absorb anything else. So that dangerous stuff just passes right on by and gets flushed out of your body. And this really just spells it out, doesn't it? It's a simple before and after. Without KI, your thyroid is an open target, just waiting to absorb that dangerous radioactive iodine. But with KI, it's already full of the safe stuff. The shield is up, and it pretty much makes the thyroid invisible to that specific radioactive threat. But here's the really crucial part. Timing is everything. This shield, it's not permanent. A single dose gives you really solid protection, but only for about 24 hours. That's why it's so important that you would only take it when and if public health officials tell you to. Taking it right before or just after an exposure is what makes it work. All right, so we get what it is and how it works. Now let's get into the really practical stuff. Who actually takes it? And how much do they take? Because this is definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Getting the dose exactly right is absolutely critical. I mean, just look at this chart. The dosage changes so much depending on age. An adult gets 130 milligrams. But a teenager? They get exactly half that. And when you get down to infants, it's just this tiny fraction of the adult dose, only 16 milligrams. This is about as precision as it gets in an emergency. And there's one group in particular that requires special, immediate attention: pregnant individuals. A developing fetus is just so incredibly vulnerable. So protecting the parent's thyroid is absolutely crucial for the health of the baby. It's why they are always prioritized for treatment in this kind of situation. Okay, but like any powerful medication, this isn't something you take lightly. KI is a serious tool for a very serious situation, which means it comes with its own set of risks. So it's absolutely essential to know who shouldn't take it and what the potential side effects could be. So yeah, first thing to know is that it's just not for everyone. If you have a known hypersensitivity to iodine, for example, or certain pre-existing conditions, things like high blood potassium or an overactive thyroid,
taking KI could actually cause more problems than it solves. And yeah, what about side effects? There can be some. Things like diarrhea or nausea aren't uncommon. And in a bit of an ironic twist, taking it can sometimes temporarily cause your thyroid to become underactive. It's all part of that tough risk versus benefit calculation that officials have to weigh in a crisis. And one last thing on the safety front, other medications. You have to remember, this is potassium iodide. So if you're taking other drugs that already raise your potassium levels, like certain kinds of diuretics or ACE inhibitors for blood pressure, mixing them could be really dangerous. And this right here is exactly why this is something you would only ever take under official medical guidance. All right, so if you take away just one single thing from all of this, please let it be this. Potassium iodide is not a magic anti-radiation pill. It's a highly, highly specialized shield. It protects one organ, the thyroid, from one danger, radioactive iodine. That's it, full stop. And, that really brings us to a bigger idea, doesn't it? Knowing exactly what a tool is for, and maybe more importantly, what it's not for, that's the real key to navigating any crisis. In a world that feels full of complex threats, maybe this kind of precise, targeted knowledge, maybe that's our most powerful shield of all.